Hello, and welcome to Warhammer 40k's Grim History from the Beyond. I'm Zeckthar,
And I'm Yuksen.
and we are the chroniclers of all that was and all that will be in the 41st millennium. We've seen the rise and fall of many empires, and this week we'll be looking to the sons of Ultramar, the Ultramarines.
That's right, Zeckthar, the Ultramarines. Also lovingly known as the Smurfs. This month we will be taking a deep dive into Rabute Gilliman, famous Ultramarines, the Primaris project, and of course our Q&A at the end of the month when we answer your questions.
Of course, Yuksen. But to our dear listeners, if you like our stuff, please subscribe, follow, like, and comment. And if you wish to help us out, you can click the support podcast button on any of our descriptions on Spotify.
Quite right, Zeckthar. If you like what we do, don't hesitate to support us on Spotify. We wish to keep this free and without ads. So, if you find folks truly enjoy this, you can help. If you click on our support button on our Spotify channel for 99 cents a month, we can continue doing our stuff without those hated ads. Now, mind you, if you wish to do more, feel free. But this is all we ask, just 99 cents. Well, Zeckthar, let's get into it, shall we?
Well, as you know, Yuksen, this is our last week of the Ultramarines, and we always start off the end of the month with our dear listeners' questions.
That's right, Zeckthar. Well, this week we only have a few questions, but we do have an interesting talking point.
Cool.
Well, the two questions we got were from listener LBCU2, and she asks first, what happened to Bob? Well, to answer that question, I actually left him in the hands of the orcs.
Wait, you did what?
Well, they may be able to fix him.
Even for you, that's a stretch. You just want him dead. You want to kill Bob.
Well, they seem to be pretty...
Oi, where'd you put the burner? You know, the one with the lizard on it.
You mean Suture's breath? I put it back in the armory. Why?
Oh, nothing. Just fixing your metal, boy. Thanks. Left, right, left. You know...
Not a word, Zeckthar. Not a word.
Mousetrap. Fair enough. What's our next question?
This one also comes from LBCU2, and she asks, what kind of sandwiches does Phil the Perpetual Sandwich Man make?
Well, he makes all sorts of sandwiches. Some for particular people, you know, those he knows. And then if he's guessing, he just has his staples. I mean, a couple of good examples are like, for instance, if he's, serving a demon. Yeah.
He starts with the sourdough, then he adds salami and sharp cheddar cheese, adds the red hot sauce for flavor, along with some sliced jalapenos, and then presses it to make the corn special.
Right. Well, for the dark elder, like we mentioned last week, this is a cold sandwich, turkey on dark rye and Swiss cheese. What I didn't mention was this thin slice of dill pickle, and of course, the stone mustard.
Now, the orcs, it's a bit tricky because, their main diet is human and mushrooms. So Phil came up with, and squigs. But anyways.
Well, squig is kind of a mushroom, isn't it?
It's a fungus, not necessarily a mushroom.
Okay, fair enough.
So Phil came up with an interesting version of the Grox burger.
Don't you mean a Grox bun?
No, I mean burger.
Okay.
The only thing close to it is the burgers on Terran 42. You see, he takes an onion bun, adds a thick slice of ground up grilled Grox meat to it, then a slice of ham, and then finally Swiss cheese along with grilled mushrooms and onions.
That actually sounds pretty good, but does he add any condiments?
Just a thin spread of hollandaise sauce.
Ooh, that's strong. That's pretty good. I might actually have to try one of those.
Indeed, but what does he serve the Tau?
This is one of the few sandwiches that I think is, it's okay. But, the Tau prefer the simple things in life, so he just makes them an egg salad sandwich on plain white bread with a single piece of lettuce. Well, what about the Imperial Guard? They probably show up the most at this point, don't you think?
Well, unfortunately, there are too many different regiments to go over every single one, but the most popular is his sub sandwiches. I mean, he has from the basic bacon, lettuce, and tomato on a brioche bun with a spread of mayo to the meatball deluxe, on a herb and garlic
roll.
I know it seems a bit standard, but he also allows you to choose what cheese you want and any number of seasonings.
Can you get it toasted?
But of course, Phil is prepared for any sandwich you want. But what would he make a Space Wolf?
Well, Phil calls it the Phil Steak Sandwich Special. It's one of his favorites. Served in a long sandwich roll, consists of a sliced seared grox meat, bell peppers, and a strained concoction he calls Cheese Whiz. The sandwich is then slightly cooked in the oven to give it a toasty crunch and served with a large helping of fried potato slices.
Sounds pretty good too. But real quick, one last one. What would he give to Black Templar?
I don't know. Probably just the PB&J. I mean, it is the Black Templar.
Okay. Well, as fun as describing Phil's sandwiches, we must move on to the next question.
Good, because I'm actually getting pretty hungry.
Well, the next question has a little bit more to it, and it comes from Panzermaster Walker 4393, and he says, please talk about the true sons of Horus, the ones who didn't join the Black Legion, and also you should talk about the Rebutan heresy. Give it a read.
Right. Well, okay. So the Rebutan heresy is very similar to the Dorn heresy. It's an interesting pulp read, anyways, throughout the Milky Way. And the concept is what would have happened, anyways, if the traitor legions stayed loyal and then the loyal legions turned traitor. So, like, good example would be Sanguinius actually ends up killing. Well, actually, I don't know about Sanguinius. I think the way it goes is Sanguinius ends up killing Horus, and then the Emperor ends up killing Sanguinius, or something along those lines. I really haven't gotten too much into it. It's just kind of an interesting mirror history. It's probably the best way to describe it. I don't know. You got anything else on that?
Not particularly. When it comes to the true sons of Horus thing, if he's talking about, for example, remnants of traitor legions, there are notable ones when it comes to sons of Horus. There's only like 2 or 3 actually mentioned having survived.
Isfahan 3.
Isfahan 3, either be it in space or on the planet.
Yeah, I'm just guessing, anyways, that you mean, anyways, like Yuksen was saying, anyways, the ones that stayed loyal to the Emperor as opposed to the ones that went with Horus. Although, if you are talking about the ones, anyways, that didn't remain loyal but didn't become part of the Black Legion, yeah, they're still kind of floating around in the warp. I mean, they're just kind of there. But if you are talking about the loyalists, we actually did some digging on this, and quite frankly, it seems like the only guy that walked out of Isfahan 3 alive that was a son of Horus or a Luna Wolf was Graven Loken, who ended up, where did he end up? He ended up with Nathaniel Garrow, didn't he? Didn't he end up picking him up? Yeah.
Nathaniel Garrow, who was the captain of the Death Guard, actually.
Right.
Ended up taking this ship known as the Eisenstein. And he ended up taking several different loyalists that I believe Graven Loken was one. I'm pretty sure.
We actually had to come back for Graven.
Yeah, so that would have had to have been after he escaped with the Eisenstein first.
Yeah, so Nathaniel Garrow, what ends up happening with him is that he is sitting on his ship right outside of Isfahan 3, and he gets word from, God, I can't remember his name. He was a sergeant, I believe, in the Emperor's Children, who figures out anyways that they're going to kill all the loyalists. So as he's trying to get down to the planet to explain to them what's going on, he actually voxes Nathaniel Garrow and tells him what's going on. So Nathaniel starts to try to leave space because he needs to go back and tell the Empire that
the first thing he does is he doesn't shoot down the people that are actually hanging down to tell the people on the grounds that the betrayal's happening.
Well, no. I mean, kind of.
First off, he had sent this message by this guy they're talking about saying, yeah, they're rebelling against the Emperor. And we're going down to tell people about it. And he's put in this position. It's like, well, should I believe these people or should I follow orders of basically helping annihilate these people that are in front of me?
What did help with that whole situation, by the way, is that first off, Garo knew this guy. That's a big help. The other thing too, though, is that he's trying to fly down his ship down to Esfon 3, he actually has 2 Emperor's Children's Stormhawks chasing him, trying to shoot him down so that he doesn't do that. So, which kind of helps with his argument. Now, before he takes off, though, there is another important thing that takes place. Another actual son of Horus that escapes, and he escapes the vengeful spirit. And crap, what is his name? He's the captain of the 3rd company.
Yakto Kuz?
The half-herd. The 3rd chapter master, or the 3rd captain of the captain of the 3rd. What was it for the legions? It was the 3rd captain. He commanded the 3rd company. There you go. That's the word I'm looking for. Jeez. And he was known as the half-herd because he was this old-timey guy, and no one really kind of paid much attention to him because he would just kind of ramble on. But he ends up helping save, if I can't remember her name anyways, but I think she ends up becoming one of the first saints. And an orator. And they get on the ship anyways, and then he jets out, and he ends up, and he's the guy that actually tells everybody what's happening with Horus. Mind you, while this is all taking place anyways, there's the whole debacle with Magnus the Red. So when he shows up anyways, people are kind of already somewhat cluing in on this. No one quite believes Magnus at this point, but then when this guy shows up, it's like, yeah, Horus? Yeah, he's a traitor. Everyone's like, oh, okay. Now it's starting to make a little bit more sense. But Nathaniel, at some point, I don't even remember when, but he ends up going back and ends up saving Gavin Loken. And I mean, the two are actually pretty good friends. Gavin ends up back on Terra, if I recall right, and they offer him a position as one of the Grandmasters, one of the original 8 Grandmasters of the Grey Knights. And he turns it down. Ironically, after he
well, first he gets recruited into the Knights Errant,
right?
Because he had the Knights Errant, and then they went on several missions, and then the Knights Errant was a creation by Malkador the Sigillite, and he ended up taking. Well, there were 12 main ones, 4 of them being just basically inquisitive people, and the other 8 were Space Marines. But later, he went, okay, I want these people to become Grey Knights. And then Loken was supposed to be one of the Grandmasters that was supposed to help, but turned it down.
Right, like I said, anyways, after he saw the Emperor, he decided that he was going to turn it down, and he wanted to face the Sons of Horus, the heretics, anyways, one more time face to face. Now, what happens to Graven Loken after that, we couldn't actually figure that out. But what did end up happening in that 3rd chapter, the half-herd, he ends up actually being killed by Horus during one of those Knights Errant missions. The other Grey Knight the other guy that we found anyways ended up actually becoming a Grandmaster of the Grey Knights was a son of Horus anyways, was Severon the Wolf. And then I believe, didn't Abaddon kill him?
No, because he actually became a Grey Knight, which means he ended up.
Well, no. I know he became a Grey Knight, but I thought Horus ended up actually killing him later. Or not Horus, Abaddon. Sorry, Abaddon ended up killing him later on.
I don't think so. Pretty much everybody that was attached and became a Grey Knight Grandmaster, that's basically where their story ends. They disappear for existence because, they were put in on a planet in the warp. It's like, okay, do we know what happens after that? Nah.
Oh, okay. So no, it wasn't. Okay, so I was just looking through my scrolls here real quick. Now, Abaddon didn't kill him, but Abaddon personally witnessed his death. At an unknown time later, Severin was slain. Abaddon the Despoiler personally witnessed his death. By that point, anyways, he wasn't actually known though as Severin the Wolf. He was known as what? Iepto?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, when they all became Grey Knights, anyways, they changed their names. The Grey Knights are goofy. Now, mind you, those are the ones that we found that actually were recorded anyways, that were loyalists, that were Sons of Horus. Now, obviously, anyways, not all the Sons of Horus were on Esvon 3.
Right.
I mean, there were
Like,
bunches
for
of them all over the
example,
place.
When Loken, along with the half herd and somebody else, went on that suicide mission, basically to try to plot areas for the Space Wolves to attack the Vengeful Spirit.
Yeah, so they could
there were
teleport in.
several actual Luna Wolves with them that ended up dying. So it wasn't
Right.
like they were all on Isstvan 3. There were some that were actually even in the Knights Errant.
But what ended up happening to them afterwards is like a whole. I'm guessing they kind of splintered off and they did what they could. They probably did actually very similar things anyways, as like, for instance, the Dusk Raiders of the Iron Warriors, who ended up, that was a loyalist group that ended up working with Rebute during the Imperium Secundus, or the Secundus Imperium. And then, or like, what was the other one? There was another one that was pretty well known. But anyways, these loyalists kind of band together. And then, they all eventually died off because that was, 10,000 years ago. But it wouldn't also shock me. Yeah, it wouldn't also shock me, though, if a lot of them in any ways end up joining the Black Shields. Now, we have talked about, both me and Yuksen have talked about how there's technically there are 3 different types of, when we did Alpha Legion, there's like 3 different types of Space Marines. There are loyalists, there are Chaos Space Marines, and then we've got these other ones, the Renegade, right?
Right.
And normally what happens with Renegade is that Renegade are just kind of like, well, screw you, we're not following the Imperium, and then they slowly kind of turn to Chaos. This is probably the only group that I've looked up anyways that hasn't done that. They are just straight up mercenaries, and they will take anybody. They're like the French Foreign Legion. It's like, we don't care who you are, we'll take you.
From Terran 42, the French Foreign Legion.
Yeah, right. And not only that, but the other thing that's a lot like them anyway, a lot like the French Foreign Legion, is the fact that once you join up with them anyways, your past is pretty much scrubbed. So, and one of the reasons why they're called the Black Shields is because, I mean, they pretty much literally repaint their armor completely black, and then they kind of, they go off and do their own thing. Normally, they end up as being as mercenaries, coursers, pirates. That's kind of their gig. They'll kind of hire themselves out to the biggest bidder. They don't normally fight with the loyalist on the loyalist side very often, just simply because, well, the loyalists look at them as traitors. But sometimes they have been known to kill a Chaos Space Marine or 2. But I hope, anyways, that answers your question. We got anything else? You got anything else on this, Yuksen?
No.
Okay, well, folks, that's all the questions we had for this month, and I wish to thank those of you who sent them in. And if any of you other listeners have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we will get to them at the end of the month. Well, it seems we have a little bit more time, so perhaps we do a deep dive into a few more notable Ultramarines. Hey, Yuksen?
Sounds good, Zeckthar. How about I talk about the veteran Sergeant Torias Telion, Grand Instructor of the Ultramarine Scouts.
Sounds spiffy. Carry on, good sir.
Which I actually have a quote when he was addressing the neophytes under his charge. And I quote, "What's with the music?"
It's effects, brother. I think it will help with our body.
So, okay. Forget all your preconceptions of war, of battle lines clashing on the churned ground. Your mission is to attack before the foe even realizes that the war has begun. To strike hard at those vital weaknesses that all armies possess, but that no commander will admit to. Under my tutelage will you learn how to seek such fragilities and smite them with every weapon at your disposal. Master these duties, and I will have nothing more to teach you. You will truly be a Space Marine. Now, veteran Sergeant Torias Telion is, to put it in another term, the old dog who trains the new pups the realities of being a Space Marine and how to be the best you can as a scout so you can actually reach the level of a fully put together Space Marine. This can truly be seen by the fact that 4 currently serving Ultramarine captains rightly attribute their skills and success within the chapter's hierarchy to the peerless tutelage of this esteemed warrior when they were neophytes. Telion has served under 3 chapter masters, and through his over 300 years of service, he has mastered all Space Marine martial disciplines and has become the greatest marksman amongst the current Space Marines. He can take account of environmental interferences such as wind or gravity like few others and use a bolter to deliver a killing shot far beyond the official range. His achievements have led him to earning the honor of serving within the chapter's honor guard several times over, as well as the Iron Skull, the Imperial Laurel, and a dozen Marksman's honor badges. 2 of his many Marksman honor badges were earned for such feats as occurred during the Siege of Pallia, where Telion removed both the Tau commander and the member of the Tau ethereal caste, leading an invasion force of Tau with a pair of shots from his bolter at extreme long range. With the death of their leaders, the invaders lost all resolve and were easy prey for the oncoming Ultramarines. Despite these achievements, he has always elected to remain in the 10th Company. In my opinion, it is where he can best be utilized. It shall be noted he isn't the most yes sir individual when it comes to how superiors want him to get the job done. Not to say he's rebellious, it's more like if he thinks there's a better way, he'll voice it out, and he prefers to achieve goals his own way. To put it succinctly, he's more of someone you would give sort of vague ways for him to achieve objectives so he can utilize his experience and know how to achieve the greatest results. Well, what do you think of the old man?
Honestly, well, you probably don't want to know what I'm thinking about here.
Well, I asked you, so maybe you should give your opinion.
Okay, fair enough. I could see this guy anyways running a poker night.
Okay.
No. I mean, like, it seems like every chapter has this guy, right? This old timer, anyways, that knows what's what. And I could see him, anyways, like running a poker night, anyways, with other Space Marine chapters. I mean, we talked about, like, for instance, Ulrich the Slayer. He does kind of the same thing, right? For the Space Wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe you throw Dante in there because he's as old as dirt, along with Logan Grimnar. Crap, what's that guy? Anyways, he's a Catashan. He's like Colonel. Yeah, he's part of the Imperial Guard. He's like half robotic at this point because everything's been blasted off. Kind of thing. But he's the guy that's
Colonel.
Yeah, the Colonel. Crap, I can't remember his name.
You mean Colonel Ironhand Straken?
Yeah, that guy. I mean, he's kind of he kind of personifies the same concept. And then, ironically, anyways, a new member of this poker game, probably Rabute Gilman, because he's been around as long as he has. But
I think he'd be a little too busy.
Yeah, well, he might sit in for a few rounds. Just kind of the concept, anyways, of all these guys just kind of sitting back and relaxing, and then just like, grumbling about the new recruits, or mentioning anyways about how one of them did something that was cool, and it's just like this guy, Ulrich. He's dealing the cards, right, and Ulrich is just kind of like. You can't imagine, anyways, what this Bloodclaw did last week. And Telion's like, well, it couldn't be as bad, anyways, as as what one of my neophytes did. And it's just this kind of conglomeration of old dudes getting together, anyways, once every, like Terran month. And just kind of, shooting the Slayer and just kind of relaxing a little bit because they're under all this pressure. Especially, I think honestly that's why I kind of plugged in Rabute Gilman at the end of this. I think he would take most joy out of this. Just simply because he doesn't have as much time, but he can sit back and just kind of relax, grab a Bugman beer, or what do the Space Wolves drink? I can't remember. It's another ale of sorts, or an Amisac, anyways. Amisac probably because it's Rabute Gilliman, anyways. And just take a sip and just kind of be like, shoot the crap, anyways, with a bunch of older dudes, anyways, that have been around the block a time or two. It's like, I remember back in my day, and it would be funny, anyways, especially with Dante, because Dante's the oldest. He'd be like, well, back in my day, and for the longest time, he always had that. And now he doesn't, because Rabute is like, well, I knew the Emperor. I'm that old,
And everybody just kind of chuckles 42, where you have the guy sitting there, he's complaining about, man, the traffic and stuff, and the person at the end of the table is one of the last people who's on the moon. That's the coverall right there. Well, I was on the moon.
I just think, anyways, that, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but there just seems to be that guy, kind of like this guy, who is this old, crusty sailor dude, anyways, that literally has been to hell and back multiple times. And he's like the perfect guy to actually teach people, anyways, what not to do. He's the drill sergeant.
Yeah. And I did want to mention that during the invasion of Ultramar, he had like 60 scouts with him, and he was attached to the 5th and 6th companies, which were under the command of Captain Gellinus and Epithus. And they're fighting against the Dark Mechanics Adept for Vothir Tark. Vothir Tark was just basically pumping out demonic machines left and right.
It's like a terrible magician. He's just like, what's in the hat? Oh, another demon. No, you don't want
another vehicle. Another horrifying vehicle.
Yeah.
And so, for some reason, Gellinus decides, okay, this is what I want you to do, Telion. I want you to attach your scout marines to the main body. This was Telion's response. No.
That doesn't make any sense. Why would... who asked that?
Captain Gellinus, who apparently wasn't one of the 4 that he actually trained. Apparently.
Yes. So just real quick, anyways, why did he ask that?
I have no idea.
You just need more manpower? Or?
With the backup of the chaplain, he's like, fine, I'll let you do what you do, whatever. So
what did he do?
Basically ended up taking his forces and started, because he realized, the real problem was these manufactoriums that they had, because they were cranking out all these things. So he took his forces and started just basically slowly eating away at the manufactoriums until they were pretty much all destroyed. And it was like, well, there you go. Instead of having to constantly face wave after wave, now you have like a pittance amount that you're having to face in comparison.
Oh no, I'm just thinking, anyways.
You're welcome.
I'm just thinking, after that whole expedition, anyways, he's doing his poker night again, right? And he explains this, anyways, and Rabute gets a small smile on his face, and he goes, I am Alfarius. And everybody just chants in, I am Alfarius. Because this just sounds like him, right?
I just find it funny, though. Because
it's like, all sabotage. It's
Well, it's just like, okay, the entire... you got to use scouts the way they're supposed to be used.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Telion can use them so much better than apparently anybody else. Plus, he has this knowledge. Is like, okay, the best way to approach this. Because, like, in another case, somebody was like, okay, I want you to hunt down this, like, war boss. This is like, okay. Well, instead of going all over the place trying to find him, what we're going to do is we're going to stake out this village that is basically burnt to the ground, this city. Because I know they're going to have scavengers come by. And then they'll lead us directly to where we need to go.
It's not a bad idea.
Instead of spending who knows how much effort and time just going, is he over here? Is he over here?
I think Telion looks at scouts like what they're supposed to be. Scouts.
Yes.
And it seems like, anyways, that most, and it's not just Ultramarines, by the way. This seems to be like a reoccurring thing other than with the Space Wolves. Because they don't have scouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't call them scouts, though. They're okay.
No, they do have scouts.
Yeah, you're right. They do have scouts, but the scouts are different for Space
The
Marines.
Black Templar do not have scouts, I don't think.
Okay. Well, we're getting far afield. The concept, anyways, of these neophytes, because with most Codex Astartes chapters, anyways, neophytes are scouts, right?
Yes, and then they turn into
whatever the lowest rung is for Space Marines.
Whatever attachment that they're going to become.
Right.
You're going to become a Devastator. You're going to become a Eradicator or whatever.
Chapter. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I wanted to be
you randomly will become a captain. But I just literally
okay.
seconds ago finally became
No. I disagree with you there, sir. Because I think, anyways, when it comes to, like, for instance, captains and sergeants.
No, I know that Zeckthar, it was a joke.
But here's the thing, is that I think, anyways, that most Space Marine chapters, when they think of the scouts, they look at them more like, well, if they survive, they're worthy of being a Space Marine.
Right.
They don't use them as actual scouts.
Well, they do use them as scouts. It's just they don't.
I just think, anyways, that a lot of times, anyways, like you just said, anyways, they're just like, well, just attach them, anyways, to, we need more brothers, so attach them, kind of thing, to this legion, or not legion, chapter, and or company. Thank you, company. And therefore, anyways, if they survive, great. That means that they will be able to be Space Marines. As opposed to, it's like, no. That's not their concept in battle. Their concept is supposed to be a scout. Sabotage. Sneaky. This is what they're supposed to do.
Recon.
Yes. And I think one of the reasons why, anyways, a lot of these neophytes survive is just simply because of Telion. He just goes, no, that's stupid. Why would I do that? We're going to do this instead. Now, mind you, anyways, he must be a great negotiator, too. Because, chapter captain, anyways, like, you do what I say. He goes, all right, but we should do this instead. And then
I bet the ones that he has trained, that if they say something, it's like, okay, but I think this would be better. It's like, they'd probably go,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, you just do that.
Yeah, with those 4 guys, anyways, that are chapter masters, anyways, all he probably has to do is just say, I think this is a better utilization, anyways, of the scouts. And gives what he does. And they go, yeah.
Goal.
Yeah.
We need you to take out this outpost. You can do it however you want.
Okay, so I know we have to move on to our last.
I do have another question.
Okay, before you do, I do have a question for you. Who do you think actually wins in this poker night most of the time? Most of the accruings of monies. Do you think it's Telion, Ulrich, Dante, Logan, or Rabute?
I know that Ulrich would probably beat Logan.
Mm-hmm. I think Logan would just get too frustrated. And he's like, all in.
I think Ulrich knows him well enough to just be like, okay, yeah, I can.
Yeah. And every time he goes all in, anyways, Ulrich is like, "You have ace high. I've got a pair of twos. I'm gonna beat you." Like, damn it.
I think actually probably Telion would be one of the better ones.
I
Actually,
agree. I,
plus he
I
has the
honestly,
awesome beard. So
yeah. I think it's either Telion or Dante.
yeah,
Well, I think Dante's astute enough, anyways, about the people around him. He'd be a pretty good poker player. Honestly, I think Rabute Gilliman is there just to relax. And honestly, let's face it, he doesn't care if he loses money. He's he's the leader of the Imperium. He's like, yeah, whatever.
I know that Dante's been around longer than Telion, but I still think Telion would be able to read things possibly better than he would.
That's a strong point. Well,
But
and
that's
like I
more
said,
because
anyways,
of the fact that pretty much every single time that he's been on the field, he's either been face to face or far away. He's had to measure people every single step of the way, like
yeah,
always, all the time. Dante, yes, he has to focus on these particular things, but he isn't always at the front line, always doing stuff. He has to command orders to go to different
right.
places.
More general as opposed to actually, dealing with people.
Yeah, dealing with everything up close and personal.
Right. Well, no, and I kind of agree with you anyways. So I think, anyways, it would really come down to probably come down to Telion and Ulrich.
So I just had this image of Gilliman slowly leaning back and one of them going, No. I don't care if you're a Primarch. You aren't looking at my cards.
Yeah. How is it cheating? The Codex forbids it.
Sorry for those who are Ultramarine fans.
It would. I think it would be definitely very good humored.
Well, how about you tell us about the guy who would definitely cheat at cards, former Captain Titus?
Oh, come on now, brother. You really think he'd cheat at cards?
No, but his reputation would certainly lead you to believe that he would.
Good point. It's strange, though, because over the course of his long service, Captain Titus has overcome countless opponents and suffered many wounds, both physical and psychological. In his early days, as an Astartes, he had a foul temper that took years to control. Later, he survived the death of his entire squad at the hands of a chaos sorcerer. Titus killed this corrupted servant of the ruinous powers, but suffered grievous wounds in the course of the battle, and some in the chapter have questioned how he survived, intimating that he himself may have been touched by the corruption of chaos.
I assume this is where his reputation starts to sour.
Indeed. Yet even through these misgivings, Titus became the Ultramarines' second company's commander when his former captain died in battle. He was by his mentor's side when he fell, and still feels the weight of taking over his mantle of command. Titus faced his greatest test when he and his company of Ultramarines were sent to the Adeptus Mechanicus Forge World of Graia in the Segmentum Tempestus to stop an invasion by the Orc Rorg, a 1 million greenskin strong army led by war boss Grimskull. Unfortunately, when they came out of warp space, the greenskins were waiting for them. Whoa! Yes. And unfortunately, the orcs smashed the strike cruiser Void's Tempest before it could deploy its ground forces. Titus gave the call to abandon ship and grabbed the two closest space marines to him, tossing them into the Thunderhawk before a massive explosion claimed them all. Shutting the back hatch, he ordered the pilot to escape to the planet's surface post-haste. As they escaped the dying strike cruiser, Titus sighed with relief as he heard the scattered vox chatter of other Thunderhawks escaping the burning vessel. His chapter would survive, for the moment at least. As the Thunderhawks screamed towards the surface of the planet, began to take heavy fire from the orcs. Titus took the initiative and grabbed some raptor packs and jumped out the back with his two battle brothers. The grizzled sergeant, a good friend of Titus named Sidonus, simply raised an eyebrow and then nodded his acceptance. The second Ultramarine, a new battle brother by the name of Leandros, objected and stated the spacebook said this was bad. Telling Leandros to nut up or shut up, Titus jumped and eventually arrived on the planet's surface. Once they reached planetfall, they discovered that Grimskull was intent on stealing advanced Imperial weapons, including a Warlord-class battle Titan. This obviously would not do. Titus and his squad were redirected, though, to assist Inquisitor Drogon to retrieving the power source of the experimental warp-powered weapon, the Psychic Scourge. Titus survived direct exposure to the power source, raising suspicions in Drogon and Leandros. Upon traveling to Drogon's laboratory to use the Scourge, the Ultramarines were betrayed. Drogon, possessed by a demon, had opened a warp rift to allow a chaos invasion of Graia, led by Chaos Lord Nemeroth. The Ultramarines fought their way to a nearby Titan hangar, slaying Warboss Grimskull en route. Titus commandeered the warlord Titan Invictus, using Drogon's power source to fuel the Titan's volcano cannon and fire on Nemeroth's rift. The rift was contained, but not yet closed. Titus then entrusted the power source to Sidonus, while he hunted Nemeroth personally. However, the sergeant was ambushed and killed by Nemeroth, who then took the power source, intending to use it to ascend to demonhood. Titus interrupted Nemeroth's ascension at the top of Graia's orbital spire, tackling him off the spire mid-transformation. During the fall, Titus continued to fight Nemeroth, eventually killing him, before shattering the power source and closing Nemeroth's rift with a resulting explosion of warp energy. Now, Titus' survival and resistance to the warp energies of the power source and rift raised suspicion. Brother Leandros reported Titus to the Inquisition for potential heresy, and Captain Titus was taken into custody by Inquisitor Thrax and his retinue of Black Templar Space Marines.
What?
Yes.
He had a retinue of Black Templars? That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, well, I know why that doesn't make any sense. But do you care to explain to the listeners why that doesn't make any sense?
Well, first of all, Black Templars don't care for pretty much anybody who isn't a Black Templar. But on top of that, as we've mentioned before, they don't follow the Codex Astartes.
Right.
So why on earth would they be going, yeah, let's have the Inquisitors, the people who judge people on that. Yeah, let's have them over.
Well, not only that, but the Inquisitors used quite a few psychers, and one of the things the Black Templars do not tolerate are psychers.
Or even psychic-related weapons. Or...
Yeah. Okay. The more you think about it, I think the more I kind of agree with you. The Black Templars don't really get along with a whole lot of people. The only one I can think of that they probably get along with okay with is maybe the Imperial Fist, because they kind of came from them. They're a second founding of the Imperial Fist, but other than that, they're they also get along with the Imperial cultists too, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. Regardless, Titus was arrested on suspicion of heresy after Leandros reported his captain for both his resistance to Nemeroth's sorcery and his multiple deviations from the Codex Astartes. Like I said before, the space book says it's bad. Before he was escorted away, however, Leandros told Titus that the Codex Astartes left no doubt that the captain was a heretic. No one could resist the warp as Titus had done otherwise. The captain, though, stated that the Codex was a set of rules that guided the Ultramarines. It guided them and instilled honor within them. But it was how each member of the chapter lives with those rules, which is the true test of a Space Marine. A test, Titus concluded, that Leandros had ultimately failed. Titus was later released by the Inquisition and chose to cross the Rubicon Primaris. He is now a Primaris Space Marine with the rank of lieutenant. And last I checked, I think he's fighting Tyranids on a hive planet, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of this guy?
Well, in truth, there's a lot of confusion around this person. I find interesting how there's information about him, and yet for some reason nobody can say what his full name is. Kind of find that interesting.
Okay.
Because he's a captain, you're just like, okay, you have Captain Cato Sicarius, Captain, was it Severon Agamon?
Severus, I believe. But yeah.
Severus.
Severus, sorry.
Severus.
Yeah.
And then you have, obviously, Marnius Kelgar and Varro Tigerius. And then you have Captain of the Seconds, Titus.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Well, especially with Ultramarines. Ultramarines seem to have two names, but there are so many ways that only have like one, they're known only by one name that are Space Marines. It's not super common, but it's not uncommon either. It's kind of, it's like, for instance, Dante. He's known as Dante. So, I mean,
Probably because nobody can remember what his last name is, but
that's because he's an old fogey. True. No, there's others. I just can't think of them right now. Anyways, that I mean, they're pretty much known by one name.
but then they have something attached to it, like for example, Ulrich the Slayer and things like that. Not just Titus.
Oh no, they
Like,
added Captain.
this is Lieutenant Sam.
Yeah, okay, but yeah, his title, anyways, is Ulrich the Slayer. But people don't go, "How's it going, Ulrich the Slayer?" No, they say, "Hi, Ulrich. How's it going?"
Well, they don't. I'm just saying the fact that they don't have his full name or a
How about
name
Sigismund?
after it.
Sigismund. There you go. That's one name. All I'm saying, Yuksen, is that yes, it's very uncommon, but it's not unheard of to only have one name instead of two. That's all. Now, mind you, anyways, most of these people, anyways, that have only one name are pretty famous. Far more famous than this guy. But
And like I said, because generally they have like some sort of title behind them.
yeah, right.
Also.
Although, I will say, anyways, that once he was taken off by the Inquisition, they actually built a statue of him on his home planet. So I mean, he was liked.
And this is what it says: Captain
Titus.
etched out Titus.
Yeah. Well, maybe that was part of his penance, anyways, with the Inquisition. They're like, we're getting rid of one of your names. What? Well, yeah.
Not only that, you're ranked too.
So, well, mind you, anyways,
we went back to that statue that was put up and put like a little notation of former on there.
Right. That would be pretty petty, Yuksen. Very petty indeed. But by the way, speaking of him as a captain of the second, so people might be confused because last week, anyways, we talked about Cato, who was captain of the second. Well, he's not anymore, right? He's the captain of the honor guard for Rebute. I don't even remember who's the new captain
guard, I believe.
Right. And the new captain, I can't remember his name, but so the way, as far as we've been able to figure out, anyways, is that if you go far enough back, anyways, Captain Titus was the captain of the second. Then he got whisked away by the Inquisition, and then it became Severus Agmon. He became captain of the second, and then he got promoted to captain of the first, and then who took over for him, anyways, was Cato. And then Cato left, anyways, to go help with Rebute, and now this, we'll just call him
originally
Steve.
Acting captain ended up becoming basically permanent.
Right. And I, for the life of me, can't remember his name, but he is now the new captain. And when Titus came back, actually, he has the rank of lieutenant, and I think he ended up back in the second, didn't he? But anyways, regardless, I hope that clears it up for some people, anyways, because we kept calling him the captain of the second. You're like, oh, wait a minute, weren't you talking about?
The new guy is Sevastus Acheron.
There you go. Okay. So yeah, so Titus is backing him up now as his lieutenant, right?
Yeah.
Anything else you got about this guy that you wanted to talk about?
No,
not really. Okay, but before we take off for the day, anyways, do you have any final thoughts on the Ultramarines? Because I mean, we are coming to the end of the month, and that's kind of where we're at this point.
Well,
first off, because you did talk about it, because you were the one that actually dictated it, anyways. What do you think of the space book? Also, yes, I know. Also known as the Codex.
A couple of things I think. One is I think it's stupid for people to follow it to the letter. The reason why is because if somebody had gotten a copy of it, like a enemy got a copy of it, they'd just be able to look through it, memorize it, and go, okay, we know exactly how these people are going to act when we do certain things.
Right. Like Alpha Legion.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and that's why I think even Rebute Gilman looks at it anyways, is like, okay, you gotta adapt sometimes. You can't just straight up anyway just be like, okay, what chapter do I need to look for this? We're getting flanked from the side anyways. What does the Codex say about this? Well, that's on chapter 7. You know?
Or like, for example, the whole command structure, which obviously Telion, who is personally one of my favorite Ultramarine characters.
Is he your favorite?
He literally went up and said, no. I understand that you want to use scouts for this, but I really don't think you should be using the scouts for this. In fact, you should be using them for this way instead of going, sure, we'll attach onto your people and just be meat shields. That sounds like a great plan.
but it's a scout. That's what they do. But yeah, so is he, by the way, your favorite character, or your favorite Ultramarine?
Yeah.
Okay. Mine's,
he's
I
the
don't know,
grizzled
veteran
guy who actually knows what he's doing.
I don't really have one. Okay, you know what? Actually, my favorite Ultramarine is Rabute Gilman. How about that? I know that's kind of cheating, but I mean, the more that I've done more,
you can't choose him because he's a primarch. He's not a space marine.
No, he is the leader of the Space Marines, and the Ultramarines. So, yes, I know it's kind of cheating, but quite frankly, anyways, the more history that I've delved into Rabute Gilman, the more I come to actually really like him, especially in the 41st millennium. And the 31st, he's brash, he's arrogant, there was a lot of growth that took place in those 10,000 years where, he was dead, I guess. I think honestly what it really was is that when he was reawakened anyway, it's just that whole concept of how far the Imperium had fallen. I think really kind of, whacked him over the head anyways.
Cold water in his face and then went, wake up, boy. This is how things are.
Yeah, this is how things can go really, really bad. So, I mean, and some of the other stuff, and we'll probably get back to not necessarily Rabute Gilman and the Ultramarines, but we will probably get back to the 41st millennium sooner than you would think. In fact, actually, I believe in January we're talking about the Tau. And the Tau are a fairly new race. So none of that, a Great Crusade or Horus Heresy that some of you were scared of. This will be a little bit more modern next month as well, or in January.
Until we find the wormhole. It's like, yes, actually, they were there from the very beginning, even before the Necrons. What?
Ironically, the Emperor was actually a Tau. Heresy! Honestly, though,
he's a little gray.
Also, I did a little bit of digging anyways. Remember how we went on, we kind of talked about the Unnumbered Sons, that legion that Rabute built after, I believe it was the Terra Crusade.
It was a temporary legion that he created using other chapters' genes.
Right. And honestly, anyways, I mean, yeah, we brought it up anyways in the concept anyways that he definitely skirted his own rules. But like I was going to mention anyways, is that he does kind of eventually form back into anyways the very rules that he wrote. He started splitting them out as founding chapters. Eventually, it's actually kind of interesting though, is that eventually what ended up happening, I believe all that was left was like 20,000 of them or something like that. So he just kind of divvied them off to wherever they went. But whoever was part of this Unnumbered Sons, they actually have like their own emblem. It doesn't matter which founding they went to, but if they were actually part of the Unnumbered Sons, they actually have like a little like badge anyways that they have on their armor that explain where they came from, which to me anyways is actually kind of interesting. It's like
I understand why he created the Soul Drinkers chapter.
Well, maybe he couldn't think of any other names. I don't know.
It's just like, okay, even if they didn't know the original history behind the Soul Drinkers, this is an idea for a name that I'm thinking of that I would call a loyalist Space Marine chapter. Soul Drinkers.
Well, okay. And in his defense, he did bring something up anyways that I find interesting, is that weren't the original Soul Drinkers, they were like before Rabute Gilman, right? So I
They
could see this.
were
I could see this kind of conversation be kind of funny, anyways. Rabute's like, "Okay, what are we gonna call the new chapter?" He's like, "Wait, I got a good one. How about the Soul Drinkers?" That's pretty scary, right? Someone's like, "I already had one of those." Oh, what happened to him? You might want to sit around for this, Chief. Crap. I really like that name. Well, we're gonna go with it anyways. I really like the name.
And with that, they still won't tell us who on earth their gene sire is.
Uh,
And
anyways,
you know that they know because when Call made these guys, he had to have the gene seeds of each of these different primarchs.
right. Well, we got okay. We got a couple more questions for you, real quick. Anyways, first off, anyways, what do you think of the chapter overall? The Ultramarines.
Overall, I think they're okay. Here's the thing.
Yes.
I know many people have mentioned this. Each chapter basically has their own specialty. Like
Right.
they're excellent at. Like, for example, obviously the White Scars, it's fast attack.
Right.
Easy by far.
Salamanders, it's like flamers and getting stuck in. Space wolves, it's hand-to-hand combat normally.
Um,
Dark angels are sneaky. I don't know. Or okay, actually no, that'd be
in,
more Raven Guard. But
in comparison, and then they all have slight weaknesses. In comparison, it's the Ultramarines are good overall. So it's kind of like how you have that one player that's excellent at shooting but sucks at dribbling, or
oh, for
the other
Terran
person
42's
can
basketball.
dribble all day long but can't hit anything farther away than like 5 feet. Uh,
Careful,
and then
Yuksen.
you have
You're
this
starting to
one
sound like
guy.
me and my sports metaphors.
Then you have this one guy who can dribble okay, and he can shoot decently from wherever. So he's the guy that you want in there in a lot of cases to help supplement the other two to help cover the bases.
I
He's
think
the
that
great guy that you can throw in there when you need somebody. But if you need like the person to be really specific in an area, he doesn't perform as well as that particular person.
I think the word you're looking for, Yuksen, is balanced.
Yes.
The Ultramarines are incredibly balanced. Which honestly, anyways, me personally, what I think that I don't think much of the chapter overall, quite frankly. I when I look at all the chapters, anyways, including even the traders, they're just kind of I would put them kind of like right in the middle. I mean, they're not I don't find them to be great or interesting, but at the same time, they're also not boring. They're kind of like you said, they're balanced. They're right in the middle.
And there's so many of them.
There are so
Sorry.
many. That is
Sorry.
true.
I should specify that.
Uh,
The Ultramarines and its successors, there's
yeah.
so many of them. What I should say.
If you piled them all back in, anyways, to just one legion, they would be like half the Space Marines, I think, something along those lines.
Wrong. About a half of those would be Alfarius.
Right, right. Yeah. Anyways, so okay. Before we do leave, though, I do have, and for all of you fans of Ultramarines, I do apologize, but that's just my view of them. I think they're incredibly balanced. I think that there are some interesting characters, but they just don't really. I don't find them incredibly entertaining. But that's just me. But real quick, anyways, Yuksen, before we hang up the phone, what do you think the future holds for the Ultramarines now that Rabute is back?
Well, Rabute is basically in this standpoint, as far as I can tell, of he has to kind of leave them to what they need to do because he's having to now manage everything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, oh yeah, I'll help you out here, but really I need to spend 75 to 95% of the time doing all of this auxiliary work.
Right. Right. Paperwork.
Paperwork.
Surrounded by mountains of paperwork. Yeah.
And he's sitting there at his massive desk, and all you can see is his top of his head. The rest
Right.
of it's just papers mounted on top. Yeah.
But okay, so you're thinking, anyways, it really hasn't changed much, anyways, for the Ultramarines that Rabute is back.
Well, I think their
Other than
morale.
maybe,
I think that their morale has
okay,
definitely.
so like a sense of pride. It's like, hey, we're the only ones, anyways, that got a primarch. Yeah, my dad's not dead. Neener, neener. You know, that kind of thing. Is that what you're kind of thinking?
When they say that to the sound members, the sound members are like, right,
Well, Vulcan's not
cool.
dead. We just can't find him.
Yeah.
He's lost.
He's just disappeared again. I mean, we've had it happen before. I mean,
He's a professional. He can't die.
yeah.
We've talked to you blue guys about this.
You thought we were insane the last time, but then he popped up and helped save you all. No.
Well, folks, we've reached the end of another month, and we will be on a new topic next week.
That's right, Zeckthar, but next month is going to be a little different, thanks to the vacation we are planning on taking.
That's right. Next month, we will be heading to Terran 42 to meet up with some friends during their holiday season.
But not next week. Next week, we will be discussing our favorite books and historians from the Library Sanctus.
Indeed, Yuksen. But to those that are listening, if you enjoyed our Vox, please like, follow, comment, and subscribe.
Indeed. But to our regular listeners, just a heads up, we will not be doing a Q&A next month.
Yes, but if you do have any questions, feel free to send them in the comments, and we will get to them at the end of January.
That's right. But until next time, this is Yuksen
and Zeckthar, signing off.